You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
Welcome back to Black Clock Audio Tales. This is William Hope Hodgson's The Last Night, first published in 1912. A vision of a sunless future where the last of humanity shelters in a metal fortress while unnameable shapes move in the endless dark. It's a story of love, endurance, and cosmic dread. An early precursor to the weird fiction that would shape modern horror and science fantasy. Presented by Reverb.com, the online marketplace for musicians and sound makers who want to find the right gear to create their world's sound. Whether you're building a home studio, hunting for vintage pedals, or just trying to find that perfect mic for your podcast, Reverb.com is where musicians buy and sell their gear safely, directly, and globally. Discover new sounds, find old treasures, make your noise. That's Reverb.com. Sound better. And now, The Nightland.
Chapter 7. The Nightland, Part 3. Now I walked 6 hours, and did stop a little to eat and drink, and went on again. And it was in this second third of the day that I saw afar to my right 2 strange and wondrous men, and they did shine as they had been made of a pale mist, and they came anigh, going very swift. It did seem as that they were maybe 40 feet high, yet having no thickness. And I hid downward into the moss bushes, and they passed me, so quiet as a cloud of this day might go, and did appear to be, if I did guess, but 100 fathoms off. Yet was this no sure thing, for their position had no more surety than shall a rainbow have in this age. And so they were gone onward into the night, and did seem to come out of the north. And they did appear not to wot of me, and whether they were harmful I know not, for they harmed not me. And I lay there in the moss bushes until they were well gone away, and I had belief that they must be those same mist-men that were told of in certain of the olden records, but were never seen anigh to the pyramid. Though I had thought, odd times, to see men as of mist through the great spyglass when I was within the tower of observation. But they were always a mighty way off, and some would say it was but a bright vapor that did move. Yet would others be in doubt, and so it is ever in such matters. And here let me take chance to say how that it is a hard thing to speak of such happenings to men of this age, and to make the truth proper unto them. And because of this, oft am I tempted to say no word upon many things that I did see, yet must I tell my tale, or suffer from the weight of it within me. And so shall you hark to me, and give me your sympathy and human understanding. And concerning these mist-men, I have wondered oft whether they were the visible shape of some of those many forces that were abroad in the nightland, for they did truly seem to me as that a thing of strange life were half shown to my human eyes. Yet I do not know, and am but telling of my natural thoughts and ponderings. Now, as I did say, those mist-men were never seen nigh unto the pyramid, and were, as I did hint, always so far off that they were half given over to the fables of the olden days, in the beliefs of the peoples of the mighty redoubt, and set about with an halo of unrealness, for none within the great pyramid had ever beheld them with surety. And because that now I saw them anigh to me, it was borne in afresh upon my spirit how greatly I had wandered away, and how that I stood afar in the lonesomeness of that land of night, as it had been that a man of this age did wander amid the stars, and perceive a great comet to go by him very close, for then he should know in his heart how that he was far off in the void. And this I do say to you, that you may know somewhat of the emotions of my heart in that moment. Yet presently I shook free of my melancholy and lonesomeness, and rose up out of the moss bushes, and went onward. And as ever I thought much upon the maid that I did search for, yet strove to think quietly concerning her state, else should I have turned to running and wrecked my body before that I had gone any great way. And that day I passed 7 large fire holes, and 2 that were small. And always I came softly unto them, for there were oft living things about the warmth. And at the 6th fire hole I did see that which I did think to be a great man, that did sit to the fire, with monstrous knees drawn upward unto his chin. And the nose was great, and bent downward, and the eyes very large, and did shine with the light from the fire hole, and moved, watching, always this way and that, so that the white parts did show, now this side, and now that. But it was not properly a man. And I went away very quiet from that place, and looked oft backward, until that I was sure of safety, for it was a very horrid monster, and had that place to be for a lair, as I did judge from the smell thereof. And when the 18th hour was come, I looked about for a safe place to my sleep, and I kept away now from the fire holes, for I did always find the more life there. Yet, when I came to my rest, I was lacking of warmth by reason of this care, and could scarce sleep at all, because that I was so cold. Yet managed something of slumber after a while, but woke very stiff, and was glad to beat my hands and bestir myself, that I should come to some warmth of life. And after that I had eat and drunk, I put my gear upon me, and took the discos in my hand, and went forward again upon my journey. And here I should tell you that I was come soon unto the northwest border of the plain of blue fire. And presently I was but a little way off from it, and did go direct to the north, so that the plain was always upon my right. Now this plain was a strange and fearsome place, as you shall see. For it was as that a blue void did rise upward from the earth in all the country of that plain. For surely the plain did not lumber with flame, but was hid with a strange and in-burning light, as of a shining atmosphere of a cold blue color. And it did throw no sure light upon the nightland, as had seemed proper, but was a very dreadful, cold shining, as of a luminous and blue void. And the moss bushes grew nigh to the edge of the plain, and did show to me black and strange against that horrid gloom of light. And you shall know that I could not see into the plain, for it was as that the cold blue light was a void that swallowed all within it, and gave no power to the eye that aught should be perceived. And it stood between me and the mighty pyramid, and I could nowise see across. And I know not whether I do make all this matter clear unto you, for surely it is no easy task. And presently I had gone very quiet upon my hands and knees through the moss bushes, and I came near upon the edge of the plain, and hid there in a clump of the moss bush, and peered forth and harked. And I heard constant voices that did call to one another across the plain, as it were that strange peoples of spirits did wander within that blue shining, and did make a calling one to the other, and were all hid and held apart. And surely I could see naught, and did judge, as I have writ, that they likewise went blindly. And truly is this a strange matter to set out, and easy to think on with doubt. Yet as I did see, so have I told, for in verity there were surely hidden peoples of spirits scattered and lost afar upon that improper plain. And you shall judge that I kept safe hid, for whether this might have any natural explaining, or whether it was a matter that did go utter beyond knowledge of man, I did not know. For surely in that strange land it did like to be an horrid danger in any case, and whether of some monstrous creatures, or of the evil forces of the land, I did wisely to be away. And for 2 days I did make a safe coasting of the plain of blue fire, and did keep well off, maybe 2 great miles, among the moss bushes. And I made a very good speed through the darkness, and at the 18th hour of each journey I made a place for my slumber, and the first I did manage under a thick bush, but the second was high upon the ledge of a rock that grew upward in the night amid the bushes. And save that I was bitter cold, there did no harm come to me, and in all that time of journeying I had no sight of the mighty pyramid, for the blind shining of the plain of blue fire was ever between. Now there have been certain little matters in my journey beside the plain of blue fire which I have not set down, for they were of no account, and do but repeat much that I have told before. And indeed there was naught in that part of my journey, save that I did pass 19 great fire holes and 4 small, and did observe no life beside any, save about one of the great holes that there was no hollow ground, and here I did happen to see some strange and ugly creatures, so big as my head, that did have a look of the scorpion of this age, but proportioned more squat and thick. Yet though they were naught to remark upon in that land, they had been but woeful bedmates to any man, as you may think. And you shall know how it gave a rest to my spirit, that I did go so long with no trouble of the monsters of the night, or the evil forces thereof. And I grew bolder to my journeying, and made ever a greater speed of going, and it was like that I took presently a less heed for my safety, which was a wrong and foolish state. Yet there came no harm unto me in all that part of my travel. Then it was in the 16th hour of the 3rd day of my journey beside the plain, that I did come out beyond the end of it, and had fresh sight of the mighty pyramid afar in the night upon my right. And I stopped there in a bare place among the moss bushes, and did in a weak moment hold up the discos, so that I make a salute unto the pyramid, mine home, for truly was I so utter glad to behold it once more. And in a little while I was aware that there was a disturbance of the ether of the world all about me, so that it did seem that there had been one at the great spyglass to watch for my coming into their sight from behind the shining of the plain of blue fire. And it was like that news had gone downward through the cities of the great redoubt, so that they did print the word of it in the hour slips, and by this there would be many great millions thinking upon me, and a rushing unto the embrasures, that they might spy out at me. Yet I doubt that any glass might perceive me so surely at so great a space, save the power of the great spyglass in the tower of observation, but the emotion of the millions to reach me. And you shall know that it did seem homely and sweet unto me to hear all about me the shaking of the ether of the world, and to beware that so many did think humanly upon me, and had prayers unto my safety. And it was a strange thing to stand so utter far off in the night, and to look back to that everlasting hill of light that was grown something small by the distance, and to have surety that I was looked upon through the great spyglass, maybe by the kindly eye of my dear friend the Master Monstruaken, and so keenly that he could, it might be, make almost to guess the look within mine eyes, as I did gaze backward unto that mine home. Yet though this dear and homely sympathy was a sweet and companionable thing to my heart, it came swift to my thought that I was in a sore danger if they ceased not quickly to think so wanly upon me, for surely was I not come over near unto that dreadful house of silence, and well might so much emotion of the millions tell unto the horrid power that dwelt within, how that I was even anigh. And so shall you see the mixed feelings that came upon me every way. Yet, as it did chance, the ether was quieted in a little, for it did need unity of the millions, being that they were untrained to their spiritual powers, to stir the ether. And so was I more easy of mind, and went forward again upon my way. Now, as it did chance, at the 18th hour, I was come to a place where I heard a noise of water, and I went to my left that I might come upon it, and there boiled a hot fountain that went up out of the rock of that place. And the water rose upward in a column, and was maybe so thick as my body, and it fell unto the north, for the water came not up straightly, but did shoot out from the earth unto that way. And I saw the thing plain, for there were many fire holes all about, as you shall have wotted from my telling, and so was there a certain and constant light in that part of the land. And I followed the water that ran from the fountain, and tried it with mine hand, but found it to burn, and so did go further beside it, for presently it should be no hotter than I did need. And it went onward, winding among the moss bushes, and sent up a constant steam, that hung about it, and the steam made a red cloud about the way that it did go, for the lights from the fire holes made a shining upon it, and so was it a wondrous pretty sight. Now presently I tried the stream again, and found it to be nicely warm, and I sat upon a little rock and took off my footgear, that I might bathe my feet, which were gone something tender. Moreover, I did ache to have the sweetness of water about me. And I made that I should bathe my feet, and afterwards find a place among the moss bushes, and so eat and drink, and have my slumber. Then, as I did sit there beside that warm stream, with my feet dabbled therein, I heard sudden, afar off, the voice of a mighty night-hound, baying in the night, and the sound came from the northwest of the plain of blue fire. And there was afterward a quiet, and you shall see me sitting there upon the rock by the side of that smoking river, and the steam all about me, and my feet within the lovely warmth of the water, and I very still, and frozen with a sudden fear. For it did seem to me in an instant that the night-hound might surely be upon the track of my goings. And after that there had passed a little time, the while that I did listen very keen. Lo, there burst out in the night, as it did seem scarce a mile off, the monstrous deep baying of the giant hound. And I knew surely that the brute did track me, and a sick and utter horror did fall upon me, so that I could scarce get my footgear upon me once more. Yet in truth I was not long to the matter, and was to my feet, and did hold the discos ready. And very desperate I was to the heart, for it is ever a fearsome thing to be put in chase, and the worse 100 times when there is a sure knowledge that a deathly monster doth be the pursuer. Now I did stand there but a moment, it did seem, to make an anxious considering how that I might best assure me some chance to live through this swift coming danger. And then did I think upon the stream to use it, and I leapt quick therein, and did run very strong down the middle part, which was nowhere so much as thigh deep, and oft not above mine ankles. And as I did run, there came again the bellow of that dire brute following, and was now, as mine ears did say, scarce the half a mile to my rear. And I did run the stronger, for the dread of the sound, and so maybe for a little minute, and after that time I stopped from mine heavy running, and went very wary, that I made no loud splashing, for by now the monster brute should be something anigh to that place where I did enter the stream. And I looked round with a constant looking, but did see no surely visible thing, though my fear did shape me and hound from every shadow of the moss bushes about me. Then in a moment I did hear the great beast, for it bayed but a little way up the stream, as that it had overshot the place where the scent did end. And immediately I sank swiftly into the water, which was there so deep as my knee, and turned upon my belly. And the water surged over my shoulders, for I kept my head above. And so I did look eager and fearful through the steam into the shadows and half darkness, towards where I did think to see the night-hound. And in a moment I saw it coming, and it was a little vague by reason of the smoke of the river, yet did seem black and monstrous in the gloom, and great as a mighty horse. And it went past me at a vast and lumbersome gallop, but I did not see it in that moment, for I dived my head down into the rock of the river bottom, and held downward, until that I was like to burst for sore longing of breath. Then I put upward my head, and took swift and deep breathings, and looked about me, very cautious and fearful, as you can know. And I heard the night-hound casting round among the moss bushes, and it did send up a wild and awesome baying. And I heard the bushes break and smash beneath it, as it did run to and hither. And afterward there was a quiet, yet I moved not, but stayed there, very low in the water, and did have a thankful heart that it was warm and easy to persist in. For I had surely died of a frozen heart, if that it had been cold. For by this time you do know even with me how bitter was the chill of the land. Now I had been a while lain thus upon my belly, and heard no sound from the monstrous hound. Yet I ceased not to be full of an horrid unease concerning the great beast, for I did better to know what it did than to have no knowing. And sudden I heard the sound of it, running very swiftly and coming nigh, and it passed me, and did go up the stream, and there was surely a quick stupor upon me, for I ducked not my head under the water, but stayed very still, which, as it did chance, was maybe not such an utter foolishness. For my head did seem in that half-gloom to be, mayhap, no more than a little rock in the water, and I made no move to tell of life. Yet should the hound have smelled me, and that it failed in this matter, doth be a puzzle to me. And as the great night-hound passed me, it tore the earth and the bushes, with the exceeding strength that it put forth to run, and clods of the earth and stones of bigness were cast this way and that by the feet of the hound running. And so shall you have a little knowledge of the strength of that beast. And the hound ran on into the distance, and presently I heard it baying in the night. Then I rose and went onward down the warm stream, and made a strong walking, yet keeping alway to the water, and oft did stop a little that I should listen, and always I heard the night-hound a great way off in the night, baying, and seeming that it did surely run to and fro, searching. Now I journeyed thus for 12 hours, and the baying of the hound making search did never cease. And I kept always to the water, as I did say, that I should leave no scent unto the hound. And by that 12 weary hours had gone, I found that I was come anigh unto the house of silence. And this put me in great trouble, as you may perceive, for surely had mine whole effort been to the end that I should avoid that house by a great way, yet had the hound driven me thus anear. Now I saw that the small river did go onward, and did make a breach across the road where the silent ones walk, and I determined in my heart that I should leave the water, which was now grown nigh to a bitter cold, in that it was so long upon the face of the land. Yet chiefly did I mind to leave the water, that I should come no more anigh unto that house of silence, for the water did go that way. And I stood a while, and did listen for the baying of the hound, but could hear it no more, and did have a surety within me that it was indeed gone from searching for me. Then I came out of the water, and went forward, stooping and creeping among the moss bushes, going outward to the westward of the north, so that I should go away so quickly as I might from the nearness of the house. Yet, lo, I was gone upon my hands and knees no more than 100 fathoms, when I did find the moss bushes to cease to the westward for a great way, and there to be a great bareness of rock, which, in truth, was much shown thereabout. And I dared not to go outward upon that naked land, for then I had not been hid by the moss bushes, but had stood plain there for all things of the night to behold. And moreover, though I could nowise have a sure knowledge concerning this matter, yet did I hope within me that I should make a sure hiding from the power of the house of silence, did I but go very low among the bushes. But indeed it was like enough that naught could give me hiding, yet should I lose no chance unto my safety. And because of this, I went backward among the bushes, and ceased to escape out into the westward. And I found presently that the moss bushes made but a narrow growth in that path, and grew only for a while by the side of the great road, so that I was surely fain to keep nigh to the road, that I have the covering of the bushes. And in a while I found the road where the silent ones walk, to bend inward at the north of the house of silence, so that it came right horridly close unto the house. For here the hill on which the house did stand was very abrupt, and fell steeply unto the road. And so was that dreadful house stood up there above me in the silence, as that it did seem to brood there upon the land. And this side did seem truly as the other, and the equal lone and dreadful. And the house was monstrous and huge, and full of quiet lights. And it was truly as that there had been no sound ever in that house through eternity, but yet was it as that the heart did think each moment to see quiet and shrouded figures within, and yet never were they seen. And this I do but set down, that I bring all home unto your hearts also, as that you crouch there with me in those low moss bushes, there beside the great road, and did look upward unto that monstrous house of everlasting silence, and did feel the utterness of silence to hang about it in the night, and to know in your spirits the quiet threat that lives silent there within. And so shall you have mind of me, hid there among the bushes, and sodden and cold, and yet, as you will perceive, so held in my spirit by an utter terror and loathing and solemn wonder and awe of that mighty house of quietness loomed above me in the night, that I wotted not of the misery of my body, because that my spirit was put so greatly in dread and terror for the life of my being. And also you shall have before you how that I knew in all my body and soul that I stood anigh to that place where but a little while gone there had passed inward so dreadful to an everlasting silence and horrid mystery those poor youths. And after that you have minded you of this, you shall consider how that the memory of all my life held dread thoughts of the monstrousness of that house, and now I was anigh unto it, and it did seem to my soul that the very night about it held an anguish of quiet terror, and always my mind did come back to the sheer matter that I was so anigh. And this thing I do say unto you once and again, for truly, as you do see, it hath imprinted itself deep into my spirit. Yet shall I now cease from saying further in this matter, for surely you shall never know all that was in mine heart, and if I cease not, I do but be like to weary you. And so did I hide and creep, and oft pause to a time of shaking quiet, and afterward gather something of new courage, and go onward, and peer upward at that monstrous house stood above me in the night. Yet as it did come about, I came presently clear of that horrid place, for the road came round again unto the north, and I began that I made a better way through the moss bushes, but never that I grew too much speed, for I had oft to go about, that I should miss a naked part here and another there, for truly there was an abundance and bareness of rock, so that the bushes grew not so thick as I could wish. And in the space of 5 hours was I clear of that house, and did have a greater ease about my heart, but yet was not free to come to food, nor to slumber, the both of which I did sorely need. For I had slept neither eat for a wearyful time, as you do know. But first I must go further off from the house, and afterwards come to some fire-hole, that I should dry myself and get warmth again into my body, which was bitter cold. And now that I had come unto the northward of the house of silence, there came to me a great wonder, which bred in me a mighty hope and gladness. For as I did go among the bushes, there broke sudden all around me in the ether the low and solemn beat of the master word, and the throb of the word was utter weak, so that one moment I did say unto myself that I heard, and in a moment that I did not, yet had I no proper doubt in my heart. And I reasoned with myself, and with a great shaking of excitement and expectation upon me, that the master word came not from the great pyramid, which should have power to send it as a great force across the everlasting night, whilst this that throbbed about me was faint and scarce to be known even unto the keenness of the night-hearing, which was mine. And immediately, as I crouched low there, and thrilled with the hope that was bred in me, lo, there seemed to come the far faint voice of Nani, calling with a little voice within my spirit. And I thought the cry to have an utterness of supplication within it, so that I grew desperate to up and go to running, yet did curb such foolishness, and stayed very hushed to listen. But I heard no more, yet was shaken continually with the joy and hope which this calling did breed in me. For truly did it seem now that I was right that I did determine to go unto the north, for sure was I now that the Lesser Redoubt lay that way in the night. And it did seem plain unto me that the house of silence had put a barrier between, and had power to withhold so weak a calling. And now I had come beyond the barrier, and I did perceive in my heart how that Nani had called off, maybe in the sadness of despair, yet had the weak crying of her brain elements been held from me by the horrid power of the house, and surely, as I did think, it was well named, for it did make a silence. And so shall you stay with me in your hearts, and take to ourselves something of the new gladness that held all my being, for it did seem truly that my bitter task and adventuring should not in the end be offered to uselessness, and that I did truly draw into that far place in the everlasting night, where mine own maid did cry for me that I should succour her. And ever as I went did I hark, but there was no more the low beating of the master word in the night, not at that time. And presently I spied outward to the west, as it did seem a good mile off in the night, the shining of a fire-hole, and I began to plan that I should come unto that place and have warmth and dryness and food and slumber. And in verity, so set was I to the need of these matters, that if there did be a monstrous thing nigh to the fire, as was so oft the case, then would I give battle unto it, for neither my joy nor my labors did serve to put warmth into my body, and I must surely come anigh to fire or die. Then, as I kneeled upward among the moss bushes, and made to lay a true course unto the fire-hole, I perceived that there came a being along the road unto my right, and I went low into the bushes, and moved not, for truly I had seen that there drew nigh one of the silent ones. And I made a little place that should let me to see, and I spied out with an utter caution. And lo, the being came on very quiet, and with no hurry. And in a time it went by me on the road, and did take no heed to me, yet did I feel that it had knowledge that I stooped there among the moss bushes. And it made no sound as it went, and was a dreadful thing, yet it did seem unto my heart as that it had no trouble of wanton malice to work needless destruction to any. And this I crave strangely that you to understand, for it was so to me that I had a quiet and great respect for that thing, and did feel no hatred, yet was very dreadly in fear of it. And it was huge in size, and was shrouded unto its feet, and seemed maybe 10 feet high. Yet presently it was gone onward down the road, and I was no more troubled by it. Then did I make no waste of time, but set off unto the fire-hole, and kept so much to shelter as I might, but was oft made to run over naked places, ere that I should come to more of the bushes. And I came presently nigh unto the fire-hole, and made a pause, and crept unto it with a great care. And I found it to be in the bottom of a deep hollow of the rock of that part. And the rock was clear looking of all living matters, the which did make me to be glad. And I went round about the top of the hollow, carrying the discos very handily, but there was nowhere any living thing, and I feared not to go downward into the deep hollow, and so unto the fire-hole, which lay in the bottom, as you have perceived. And when I was come there, I made a close search of the rock, and found it was very sweet and warm, and there were no serpents, neither any stinging creatures, so that a certain comfort came upon my spirit. Then stripped I off mine armor and gear, and afterward all my garments, so that I stood naked there in the hollow. Yet was that place almost so warm as some mild oven, and I had no fear to suffer from the cold of the nightland, but was uneasy lest that any monstrous thing should be anigh to come to take me so unawares. Now I wrung the garments, and spread them upon the rock near unto the fire-hole, where it was hot, and I did rub my body very brisk with my hands, so that I glowed unto health, and had no fear of a stiffness. And afterward I did look to my food and drink, and to the matters in the pouch, but there had no harm come to any, by reason of the tightness of the scrip and the pouch that had kept off the water. And I eat and drank there as I stood waiting for the garments to come to dryness, and I walked about a little as I eat, for I was restless to be into mine armor swiftly. And now I did turn this garment upward of the dry side, and now that, but did find them to steam, so that I turned them many times before they were proper. Yet in truth they dried in but a little while, and I gat me into them very swift, and into the armor, and I felt the strength and courage of my spirit to come back into me, which had gone outward somewhat when I did stand there so naked. And this feeling you shall all have understanding of, and know that you would have felt that way likewise had you but stood there in that land in so unhappy a plight. And when I had come into mine armor, I put my gear upon me, and took my discos into my hand, and did climb out of the hollow, for I would find a more secure place to my slumber, and did not dare to sleep in that place. For it was beyond 37 hours since that I did have sleep, though, as I do see by my count, I have made it to seem but as 35, yet was a part consumed in diverse matters that I have not set down. And you shall mind how bitter had been my labor and weariness in all that time, and I did know of a surety that sleep must come heavily upon me, so that I was sorely in need that I should search out a safe place, for I should not be lightly waked until that I had slept away the tiredness of my heart and the weariful achings from my body. And indeed, I should mind you how that I was not yet come perfect from the bruising which I had gotten from the fight with the yellow thing. And presently, when I had searched but a little while, I did find that a rock stood upward from a great clumping of the moss bushes unto my left, and I went over to the rock and made a search about it. And I found that there was a hole into the bottom part of the rock, and I thrust the discos into the hole and made the blade to spin a little, so that it sent out a light. But there was no thing in the hole, and it did seem a dry and safe place for my sleep. Then I turned me about and went into the hole with my feet that way, and found that it was so deep into the rock as the length of 2 men, and just so wide as I could lie in it without having it to pinch me. And there I made my bed in the hole, and went swift into my sleep, and scarce had but a moment even to think upon Nani, and by this thing shall you know how utter was my weariness. Now I waked of a sudden, and was very clear and refreshed, and I crept to the mouth of the hole and looked out, but there was all a quietness round about, and nothing to threaten. And I found that I had slept 10 hours, so that I made a haste to eat and drink, that I should go forward swiftly upon my journey. And at that time, as in the time when I did eat naked in the hollow by the fire-hole, I eat 4 of the tablets, and this you shall understand to be rightly due unto me, in that I had gone so long fasting, in that my great journeying to come safe from the hound, and to come past the house of silence. And this shall seem but a little thing to you, yet it was a wondrous important matter unto me, that had gone so long with an empty belly, and was never satisfied. And neither should any be that had eat so little as I did eat, and made to fill their belly always with a drink of water. Yet I doubt not but that it did keep my soul sweet and wholesome, and no useful thing to the powers of evil of the land. And when I had made an end of so great a gorging, and had ceased to be drunken with water, I gat my gear upon me, and took the discos into mine hand, and so went forth once more towards the north. And presently I was nigh unto the road again, for it did curve something westward a space beyond. And I was sore tempted to go upon the road, for the ground was rough, and the moss bushes did catch my feet. Yet did I stay among the bushes, though the road was true and smooth by compare. And by this telling you will perceive that I walked once more upright, and had given over to crawl between the bushes. And in truth this was so, for the land did seem very quiet in all that part, and I had less of fear now that I stood beyond the horrid unease of the house of silence. Now after that I had journeyed 12 hours, I saw that I was come upon the commencement of a great and mighty slope, as that the world did slope downward always towards the north. And I went on again after that I had eat and drunk, as I did likewise before this at the 6th hour of that day's journey. And presently I perceived the road to cease, and surely this did confound me, as that a man of this age had come to a part where the world did end. For you shall know that the road was that which had seemed to go on forever, and you shall mind the way of my life up till that time, and so shall you the better conceive of my bewilderment, and as it were a feeling of great strangeness unto one that was overpressed, as you would believe, with strange matters. Yet truly was this all as the little book of metal had told unto me, and so should I have been something prepared. Yet are we ever thus needing eye-proof, and perhaps it is more proper that it be so. Yet you shall perceive me adrift somewhat as to direction, for I had steered before this time so that I should come to the north of the House of Silence, and afterward had shaped my way by the road. But now was I adrift, as it might be set down, in the wilderness. And so did I stand and consider, and presently did look unto the far pyramid, which was now a great way off in the night, and had seemed but small by that which I knew it to be. And lo, as I did look, I perceived that I could but see the high upper point of the light of the great pyramid, where did shine the last light, and I was confounded afresh. Yet in a moment I saw that the greatness of the slope did account for this. But here I should tell to you that the slope was no wise steep, but did seem as that it should never cease, and mayhaps this is clear unto you. And I perceived surely that the time was come when I should make an utter parting from the great redoubt, and the thought came very heavy upon me. And in the same time I knew that the ether was stirred by the emotions of the millions, so that I had knowledge they watched me with the great spyglass, and did send word down unto the hour slips, and by this did the millions know, and have a great thinking upon me in that moment. And you shall perceive how utter lost and lonesome I did feel. And it was at that time that I did test the compass to comfort me, as I did tell before this, and feared I must sure forget, when I did come to the proper place. Yet have I minded me, as I did desire. And I saw now that the nightland that I did wot of was hid from me by the slope, and I turned and looked down the slope, and surely all before me was utter wildness of a dark desolation. For it did seem to go no whither but into an everlasting night, and there was no fire down there, neither light of any kind, but only darkness, and, as I did feel, eternity. And downward into that blackness did the great slope seem to go forever. Now as I did stand there, looking downward into the dark, and often backward unto the shining of the final light, and put to a horrid desolateness, behold, there came the low beating of the master-word in the night, and it did appear as that it had been sent to give me courage and strength in that moment, and did seem unto my fancy that surely it did come upward unto me from out of the mighty blackness into which the great slope ran. Yet could this have been but a belief, for the ether doth have no regard unto direction to show you whence the spiritual sound doth come, and this did my knowledge and reason know full well. And I made that I would send back the master-word, sending it with my brain elements, and so give news unto Nani how that I did struggle to come unto her. Yet did I have caution in time, for in verity, had I sent the master-word, then had the evil forces of the land wotted that I was out, and mayhaps had come swift unto my destruction, and so did I contain my spirit and desire, and made to do wisely. Yet was I put in courage by the low beat of the master-word, and did listen very keen that some message should follow, but there came none, neither did the weak throb of the word come about me again at that time. And because that I was now grown more to my natural state, and did feel that I should indeed find the maid, I looked once more into the great pyramid, long and eager, and with a solemn heart, yet with no sign or salutation, as I was before determined. And afterward I turned and went downward into the dark.
You weren't meant for silence. Find your sound, new or used, or something in between, at reverb.com. The noise you were born to make is waiting.
Chapter 8. Down the Mighty Slope. Now I went downward very quiet and slow into that darkness, and did make but a cautious way. For now you shall know me truly wrapped about with such a night as did seem to press upon my very soul, and such as you shall never have seen nor felt, so that I did seem lost even from myself, and did appear as that I went presently in unreal fashion, and did pass onward forever and forever through everlasting night. So that odd whiles I did make to walk with random, as that I stepped no more upon this earth, but did go offwards into the void. Yet was this foolishness of the mind set straight and proper each time that it did come about. For lo, I did kick against an upjutting rock here, and fall upon a great and unseen boulder there, and so was shaken very quickly to a sound knowledge that I trode the hard and actual earth, and had no true dealings with unreal matters. And ever I did go downward, and by this only did I have a guide to my way. Yet, as you shall think, through reason of utter dark, I made scarce a mile in an hour or even 2 full hours, and so grew bitter by reason of mine unableness to go forward with a proper and free stride. But I did think me presently upon a thing that I should do to light my path, and to this end I did make the discos to spin odd whiles, and did look down the mighty slope, the little way that the strange glistening of the discos did show, and so fixed my path into mine inward remembering, and would go forward afresh, until that I was shaken once more by the darkness, and would fain to look once again upon the blessedness of light, and make me some knowledge of my way. And truly the light from the discos did seem astonishing great, and this to be because there was so monstrous a darkness all about me there forever. And thereafter would I go onward again, until the pain of my stumblings did bid me surely to have that sweet shining once more into my path. And so shall you perceive my going, and sore and miserable was it unto the heart, and like to shake the courage of the spirit. Yet in verity I had come through much, and did have intent to give way to no foolishness of thought. And you shall well believe that I did make the light not more oft than I did surely need, for it was no properness of wisdom to use the power of the discos, save for mine extremity. Now presently, when I had done this wise through 6 long and bitter hours, and it being now beyond the 20th hour since I did last slumber, I sat me down there upon the mighty slope in the everlasting dark, and did eat 2 of the tablets, and made the water, and could but feel and hearken whether I did this thing right and that. And when I had eaten and drunk, I unfolded my cloak and wrapped it around me, and placed the scrip and the pouch under my head, and the discos I took to company me, and so fell swiftly upon sleep, yet did think earnestly but vaguely upon Nani as I came unto slumber. And I slept all but 6 hours, and did waken very sudden there in the utter dark, and I got me to mine elbow, and did listen very keen, for I had waked immediately, as that something had touched me, or come nigh unto me, and I gripped the discos and listened, but there did not even a little sound come to me out of all that night. And presently I had more assuredness that naught did make harm about me, and I sat me up in the dark, and reached for my scrip, and did eat and drink there in the utter night, and fumble somewhat, as you shall think. Yet I was done in a while, and got my gear upon me, and the discos into my hand, and so to my feet and forward. Now all that day I did have a strange unease of the spirit, so that I stopped oft to listen, as that my soul told of something nigh unto me that did follow very quiet. Yet did mine ears perceive nothing, and so I alway to go downward again into the night that held the slope. And here should I tell how that in the early part of the 7th hour, after I had eat and drunk, and went forward as ever upon my journey down the mighty slope, I did have a very sore tumble against a sharp rock, for I put my foot sudden into a small hole, and this did make me to pitch, and I was utter shaked by the fall, and lay very quiet for a time, for the rock had surely ripped my body, but for the armor. And after that I was something renewed of strength and spirit, I made that I should go no more upon my feet, but upon my hands and knees, and thus should I feel the way that I went, and have a less need of the discos, which had not overmuch use to light my way, in that I shone it not often, and did guess more than I did perceive, as you may think. And so I crept all that day, which was a bitter way of travel. Yet had I done many a sore mile thus through the nightland. And when that I had gone downward for 18 hours, and eat and drunk thrice, I ceased from my labour, and did feel about in the darkness, that I come to a level place for my rest, and so did find presently a place not so bad, and did push and cast away such small boulders as have been like to irk me. Then did I eat and drink, and afterward composed me to my sleep, and had many a thought of Nani, as I did drift unto slumber. Yet also had I memories of the strange half-fear that had been with me all that day, as though something went constantly near me in the dark. And because of this, twice did I rise unto mine elbow and listened, but heard no sound to trouble me, and afterward did trust that I did but fancy, and so came at last unto slumber, that yet was not over-restful, for truly I did listen even as I slept. And when I had been asleep scarce 6 hours, I waked again very sudden, as I had done before, and had belief that something did be anigh unto me, and I gripped the discos and did hearken, yet was there no sound that mine ears did wot of, neither aught that had power to be surely known of the spirit. And all that day was as the day before, save that about the 8th hour I came near to fall into some monstrous pit in the great slope, but did only fall with my breast upon the edge, and so drew back, and presently did crawl all around it in the dark, and come safe unto the lower side, yet shaken and put more in trouble of spirit than before, and fearful how I should go, for I knew not whether I had come among such things, or whether I had but few to sorrow me. And so you shall perceive that I went over cautious for a great while in all that utter dark, but did think at last upon a plan to go with more surety and speed. But to this I did need a cord, and surely I had no cord upon me. And if a boy be no boy that hath none such about him, shall not the same be said of any man. And this I did think as I searched me, for the sayings of that day had many that were like to this. Yet in the end I did compass my plan, for I did buckle the scrip and the pouch together, and took one of the straps from the pouch, and this strap was long and thin, and well suited unto my purpose. Then I fixed a stone into the end of the strap, and buckled it there, and after that I cast the stone before me, as I went upon my hands and knees. And I did hold to the hither end of the strap, and so was able to have something of knowledge whether there lay any great deepness immediately before me, and this wise to strive that I fall not down some monstrous cliff in the night. And so did I go, casting the stone continually to my front, down the slope. And this you shall think to be a cumbersome fashion of travel, yet was I in better case than in all the time since I had begun to go downward of the mighty slope in the everlasting darkness. And at the 18th hour I did sleep, and was waked strangely before the 6th hour, even as I had waked before. And this did put always upon me a new wonder and unease. Yet did no harm seem to come unto me, and I did strive that I have no needful trouble of mind. But that something was always nigh unto me in the dark, I do truly believe, yet have I no knowing that it was evil, for it harmed not me. And 3 days more I journeyed thus, and did never cease to creep downward weariful upon my hands and knees, and the discos I had to my hip, and so shall you know how I carried it. And by this, as you do know, I had been on the great slope 6 days of utter dark, and did have no wotting but that I went into some dire and dreadful place, for surely I had gone for ever downward a monstrous way. And here, before I tell further, I must set down how that the cold was much gone from out of the air upon the slope, and the air was grown, as it did seem, very heavy unto my chest. And concerning this matter I should say something, for if I do mind me, I have said not overmuch concerning the air of the nightland and the mighty pyramid. For truly I have been so set to tell my story of all that I did truly see and adventure upon. Yet though I have said but little, you will surely have perceived that the air of that far and chill time was not as the air of this, but was thin and keen within the nightland, and lay not, as I do think, to a great height above the land, but only nigh to the earth. And as you do know through my tellings, there was a wondrous difference between the air within the mighty pyramid and that which lay without around the base. For upward beyond that I did understand that there was no outward air that any should breathe, and so was all the pyramid sealed in certain wise in all the upper cities forever, and whether it was sealed utterly from the outward air at the base, I do not surely remember, if in truth that I did ever bother my head to such matters. Yet if I be set proper in memory and understanding, we did draw air from the underground fields, but whether they gat any change or newness of air from the nightland, I have no knowledge, and do lament that I have no sure knowing. Yet, as you shall believe, I could surely write 100 books upon that wonder of the future, and be still lacking in the half of all that there is to be told, and so do I try to have courage to this my task, and to have no over-trouble, because that I do tell but a little of a great tale. And here in this place will I set down how that the peoples of the pyramid were greater to the chest, methinks, than we of this age. But yet do I have no over-surety in the matter. For well it may be that the reason of this age doth blind within me somewhat the knowledge that I have concerning that. For in verity is it not but a natural thing to believe those peoples to be greater of the chest, so that they should make a proper dealing with the thin air of that place and that time. And yet, as I do strive to make plain unto you, because this thing should be, by the making of my reason, I do the more distrust that reason shall make foolish my knowledge, for even a fool should suppose that which I have told, and the truth may be even otherwise. Yet that the peoples of the upper cities had great chests I do well know, for this was a common knowledge, even as we of this age do acknowledge the peoples of Africa to be of blackness, or those of Patagonia to be of great stature. And by this one thing should any know a man of the upper cities from a man of the lower cities. And because that there grew this difference among the peoples, there had been once, as any could learn from the histories, a plan whereby the peoples should be moved upward and downward through the great height of the mighty pyramid, from this city unto that. Yet had it met with great disfavor, and was put out of force. And this is easy to be seen as the natural way of the human heart. And here it doth occur unto me that it was like enough to be a plan for health, beside of training of the mind, that each youth and maid was put to travel through all the cities of the mighty pyramid, the which did take 3 years and 225 days, as I have told before this. For by this plan were they made to breathe the air of every height, and this mayhaps unto the good of their developing, and they also to discover that air which was best to their need. And concerning the air of the nightland, you shall know that there was in all that land no flying thing, because that the air was grown very thin. Yet, as the records did show, there had once been monstrous flying brutes, that went over the land in mighty bounds. But this was in a long gone age, and we could but suppose that the records gave truth. And here you shall know that, when the Monstruacans did learn that I would journey through the nightland in search of Nani, there had been some foolish and well-intended talk among them that I take a small flying ship that was in the great museum beside the models of the great ships. For truly this machine was yet sound to go, for it was made of the grey metal of the mighty pyramid, that did seem to have no power to cease. Yet, in verity, I had no skill to manage this, neither had it flown through 100,000 years, so that none did know the mastership of that art, which did be learned but by a constant practice, and oft made uneasy by fallings that did wreck the machine, as I did know from the book of flying. And, moreover, as I have told, the air of the nightland was grown over weak to uphold such a thing, which, I doubt not, had made the peoples of the pyramid to cease from flyings, quite so much as that they did fear the forces of evil in the night. And if that there had been air and skill sufficient unto this purpose of flying, yet had I been wicked with foolishness that I should work to be hung upward in the night, for all the evil of the nightland to behold. And though I had gone up some great way, yet the machine had surely made a great noise in the quietness of the eternal night, as you shall suppose. Now indeed am I gone weary that I should need to tell so much concerning the air of that time and place, for surely I do seem to make this my story as that I did make a lecturing upon matters of chemistry, and so do I cast about, that I may not bother to tell more upon this matter. Yet in truth, a little more of my thinkings and observings had I better set down here, and so be done with it. But you shall have patience with me, and know that had this, my story, been no more than an idle tale, I had been free to make no labor with such matters. Now there doth a wonder come to me, why that the road-makers, who were of that far-off age which was before the age of the mighty pyramid, did not fly downward from the upper world into the deep of the monstrous valley, but did instead build a road. Yet it may be that the air of the upper world had grown thin a great age, so that they had truly forgot that once man did have the power to fly. But even if that they did have proper machines to this purpose, surely it were a wondrous and fearful thing to fly downward 100 great miles, for they surely to have a dread that they never to rise again through so huge a deep. And moreover, the downward world that was the bottom of the great valley was full of monsters, as was told in the little metal book. And the monsters were very strange and unknown, and foreign to the whole world, that had never come unto the deep of the valley. And the valley had come, as you shall mind, when the earth did split, and this thing was, in truth, like to be thought that the same ending of the world which all nations have been taught to believe shall come. For in verity, when the world did split and burst, and the oceans rushed downward into the earth, and there was fire and storms and a mighty chaos, surely it was proper to think that the end had come. Yet was it in truth but the beginning of hope of a new eternity of life, so that out of the end came the beginning, and life out of death, and good out of that which did seem a dire matter. And so is it always. Yet doth this go past my first wonder, which did concern the wherefore that they had made not to descend in the things of flight. Yet maybe shall my reason stand to show why this was not. And again, mayhap it did chance that some were wild adventurers, and did leap over the edge of the upper world, having to ease their flight certain contrivings, like to parachutes. And these you shall picture, as that you watch them to leap, and so shall you see them go downward into the gloom, and you shall see them for maybe 10 miles, and maybe for 20 miles, and afterward shall they be lost utterly in that great deep, and see no more of any man forever. But when the nations became road-makers, and came downward slowly to the monstrous deep of the mighty valley that did split the world, then were they come there by millions, and with power sufficient to fight against the beasts, and afterward to grow back again to an ancient civilizing, and so to the building of the great airships that were yet shown in the great museum of the pyramid. And here shall I cease from these thinkings on this matter, for indeed, who shall say what did be truly a reason for those peoples, and what was their need? And so do I come to no surety by my wonderings. Yet, as you do know, all things do seem verily to go in a circle. For behold, in time they of the mighty pyramid were likewise held off from the glory of the airships, and so were gone backward a great way, according as we do look upon this matter. And so hath this been the way always, and you shall know who have studied and thought, and seen the true ways and goings of life. And now will I go forward in my telling, and here will I set down a sure thing that I did perceive, both by mine ears and by my fingers, For, as I did make clear to you but a while gone, there had come a change into the air as I did go downward of the mighty slope. And truly I was come to a great and new deepness, even beyond that of the wondrous depth where did stand the Last Redoubt, so that I was afar down and in a monstrous night. And the air here was of a great thickness and abundancy, even as it might be the air of this our age, or maybe more or maybe less, for who may compare two matters with a sure guessing that do have an eternity to keep them asunder? And because that the air was grown very strong and apparent, it shall be mayhaps that it was by reason of this thing that the water, when I did make it, did fizz upward in a moment very loud and plentiful, and did boil overward to the earth from out of the cup, and wet upon my hand. And surely this thought did come very keen to my reason, as I did fumble each time of mine eating, there in the everlasting night and lonesomeness of the great slope. And so shall you have knowledge now of this and that thing which did come upon my thought, and of the little and the big wonders, and all shall help something to give unto you the ache of newness and bewilderment that was constant companion unto me. Now by this time, as I have said, I was gone downward ever for 6 great days, and I did seem as that I should presently come to the middle of the world, for of going downward there was no end. And then, when it did be that I was near ready to believe this, I perceived far off in the deep of the night a little shining that was yet weak and unsure. And I do not know whether I can truly give unto you the great astonishment and pain of hope that did come upon me, so that I grew sick in all my being but to behold once again the blessedness of light, and to have help unto my belief that I went not downward to an utter desolation. And I stood upward from my knees, and did look very earnest, and surely it did seem that a light was there afar downward in the night. And again it did seem that I must be plagued by my hopes and by my fancy, that there was nowhere any light. And then again I did see it very clear, and not to be mistaken, and I had a shaking to come upon me, and I gat me to a run, and made a great and mad speed down the dark slope. And lo, I was not gone any way, but I went headlong, and near brake myself, and could but hold my teeth together very fierce and quiet, until that the pain was something gone from me. And afterward I gat me again to mine hands and knees, and went slowly as before, and so for a great hour or more, and did look oft, and alway the light became more plain to my sight, but ever to come and go oddly wise. Yet did I go for 6 hours, before that I was come anywise near to it. And by this shall you know how great a space off it had been. And lo, when that I did seem surely a nigh unto it, truly was it still far away in the night, and I came not indeed near to it until that I was gone onward again for 3 hours more. And all that time did I yet go downward into the night, but the slope now did not be so utter dark. Now presently I made a pause, and stood upward to my feet, so that I should the better perceive the light. And lo, as I did look toward it, I heard a far-away sound in the dark, as that something did set up a strange and monstrous piping in the night. And immediately I went to mine hands and knees among the stones of the slope, and kept myself low in the darkness, so that I should be the less plain to be seen, did any monster approach. But there came nothing to trouble me, and I went downward of the slope for yet another hour. And all the time that I did go, the sound of the piping grew more in the great eternity of the night upon the slope. And by this time I was come truly near unto the light, but yet did not behold it plainly, for it did burn beyond certain monstrous rocks that stood between. And I went to the left for maybe the half of a big mile, and all the while that I did go, the piping made a mightier whistling in the night, and it did seem presently as that the earth sent forth the sound and revelry of wild roarings. And I went the more silent, and later did kneel among 3 rocks, and peered forth for a while upon the place before me. And now, being come nigh unto the light, though yet it was not unhid from behind the great barriers of the uprising rocks, I perceived that I crouched within the mouth of a mighty gorge, and the left side was a great way off, and I saw it plain at whiles when the light did rise. But the light was to the right, and it was so wondrous great that it did make clear to me that a mountain was to that side of the gorge, and went upward into the everlasting night, as it did seem forever. And afar down the gorge I did see the shinings of strange fires, faint and a great way off, and so was I come at last to the bottom of the mighty slope, yet the gorge also to go downward, but not so great. And presently I did go forward again, and so did open the point of the rocks, as the sailors do say. And I saw now that there gushed forth a great blue flame from the earth, and the mighty rocks stood about it, as that they were olden giants grouped there to some strange service. And concerning this flame, I was not overmuch astonished in my reason, for it had seemed to me, as I drew anigh, that the fire and the sound should be made by the roaring and whistling of a burning gas that did issue forth among the rocks. Yet truly, though it did be a natural matter, it was yet a wondrous sight, and set amazement on my senses, for the flame did dance and sway whitherward monstrously, and sometimes did seem that it dropped so low as 100 feet, and afterward went upward with a vast roaring unto the utter height, and did stand mighty and blazing, maybe a full 1,000 feet, so that the far side of the gorge was lit, and surely it was 7 great miles off or more, and yet did show plain and wondrous. And the light did show me the flank of the mountain, that made the right-hand side of the gorge to go up measureless into the night. And so shall you perceive that I stayed a while among the rocks that were in the mouth of the gorge, that I should gaze upon this thing. But afterward I looked this way and that way, so that I should have a knowing of the place where I was come. And it was a wild and stark and empty place, as you must perceive. And the far side did be great miles off, as I did say. And everywhere there was abundance of rock and lonesomeness. And before me there went the great and dim length of the gorge, and there were lights here and lights there in a great distance, and oft, as it did seem, the quiet dancing of lights in divers places, but yet were these gone on the instant, and ever there was a strong and vacant silence upon that place. And presently, after that I had looked once more into the mighty dancing flame, and perceived nowhere any life around it, I went onward down the quiet gorge, and for a great way as I journeyed was my path lit by the dancing of the blue flame, and oft should I seem to be going but dimly among the rocks, and my shadow faint and long, and lo, the flame would leap, and all the gorge come to a wondrous brightness, and my figure to shorten, and the shadows to be black and strong. And so shall you perceive how I went. And oft did I turn me about to behold the dancing of the great light, for it was solemn to my spirit, even amid so much of greatness and eternity, to think upon that flame, and to conceive that it had an utter age danced there at the foot of the mighty slope unseen through lonesome eternities. And this I do tell unto you, that thereby may you have some knowledge of the strangeness and the bitter loneliness of that place, which in verity did seem the expressing of all the lonesomeness of my wanderings. And all the time as I did go downward of the great gorge, there sounded the blast of the roaring, that was presently afar to my back, and the mountain-sides did catch it here and in that place, and sent it offwards with strange and improper echoings, as of a chill piping, or oddwise as hushed whisperings of monstrous creatures, so that I did oft stoop to hide a little among the boulders, for truly I knew not but that some unnatural thing called from the darkness of the mountainside. And for 6 hours I walked onward thus, and sometimes did I hide, having a sudden fear, as I have told. And presently, in a great while, the roaring was sunk to a far and monstrous piping, but in the end to no more than a far and uncertain whistling, that yet did catch strange echoes in the night. And in the end there was only a quietness. And yet, as you do perceive, there had been always a silence in that gorge, as I have told, and this to the despite of the whistling. And I do hope that you have understanding with me in this matter, for it was truly as I have told, and there is no contrariness of telling in this matter. Now, in all this time that I had walked in the great gorge, I had passed 4 of the far lights that I did see from the bottom of the slope. And the 2 first and the 4th were blue, but the 3rd was green, and all did dance and quake, and sent fitful shinings into the belly of the gorge. And there came also from them whistlings, and from the second one a low and strange moaning noise, and I doubted not the gas did come oddly and with trouble. And I passed these things with no great thought, for truly they were no matters for notice, after that which I had beheld. Now, as you shall mind, it was surely in the early 3rd of the 7th day of my journey down the mighty slope that I saw the first shining of the monstrous gas fountain, and from that time until now had there passed maybe 16 hours. And, as you do wot, I had eaten not in all my travel since that I had seen the light, so that I was gone to a proper lack inward. And moreover, it was full 19 hours or more since that I had slept, and all that while had I laboured. And I ceased me from wandering, and looked about that I should come to a safe and proper place for my slumber, and this I saw very quick, for there was dry stone and rock everywhere, and no failing of holes in divers places to my purpose, so that I was soon in a little cave between 2 mighty boulders. And here I eat 4 of the tablets, for truly so many were my due, and I had not been violent had I eat more. And afterward I made some of the water, and it did fizz up in a moment, so that I perceived that but a good pinch made a great cupful. And this I set to the count of the strong and heavy air, as I have told, which I did think to have a greater power of chemistry. And presently I slept, having my gear about me as ever, and the discos to my breast. And as I went into slumber, I thought sweetly upon Nani, as I had done indeed 100 times since I was come to the hopefulness of the lights of the gorge. Now, whilst I slept, I dreamed that the master word did presently beat all about me in the night. Yet, as I do mind, I waked not, and because that I continued to sleep, I have no sure knowing whether this was truly a dream or an happening. And I minded me upon it when I waked, but this was after that I had slept 7 hours, and I could have no sureness anywise of the matter, but only that I was come safe through my sleep, though heavy within my head and limbs, as that the air did call me unto a further slumbering, as is like enough. And after that I had eaten and drunk, I put my gear about me and the discos to my hip, for I needed both my hands to the task of journeying amid the great boulders. And I set forth again down the half-light of the mighty gorge, and through 18 hours I made a strong going, save when I did pause at the 6th and 12th hours to mine eating. And by the 18th hour was come, I was very ready to my food and slumber, and presently I was asleep in a place of the rocks. And that day had I passed 23 of the dancing gas fires, and 5 been like a white fire, but the others blue and green, and all did dance and made a strange and uncertain light within the great gorge. Yet was it a peaceful thing unto my spirit that there was truly light, as you shall understand. And I slept 6 hours and waked, and did want more sleep, as you shall think. But I eat and drunk, and put my gear upon me, and went on downward of the gorge. And at the 6th hour, after that I had eat and drunk, I came to a part where the big gas fires did cease to dance, and there was a certain darkness upon that place. Yet was it not a proper dark, for there came the glimmer of a flame here and the glimmer of a flame there, as that little flames came upward between the stones, and did vanish, and come upward in another part. And so did light and die out constant and forever amid the stones and the boulders of that lonesome gorge, and made a low spread light, so that it did seem unto me that strange shutters of light beat upward through the dark of that place. And I went onward, and a heavy fume did seem to hang in the air, and horrid gases to come upward from the earth in odd puffings, and anon a light would leap upward beyond the next stone, and afterward vanish, and there would be 100,000 such upon every hand running to and fore, and afterward for a moment an utter dark, and again the little flames everywhere, so that it did seem I went one moment amid the heart of a strange country of fire, and immediately through a country of utter night. And this was to me strange and a peculiar matter. Yet, as I do think, the gases did bother me the more, for they did seem as that they were like to hurt mine health utterly. For in verity, oft did I seem that I should choke and breathe no more, by reason of the poison that came upward from among the stones and the boulders. And all that time, as they came or went, did the little flames make small flocks of sound in the gorge as they did flash or die, and the sounds did seem, to my likening, as stones cast into an utter silent pool, for they but made apparent the everlasting quiet of the gorge. And afterward it came beyond this place, and you shall see me going very lonesome among the rocks of the gorge beyond. And by this it was come nigh unto the 18th hour, and I did find a place proper to my slumber, and did eat and drink, and was quickly gone over unto sleep. And here I should tell how that I had not an over fear of evil powers whilst I was in the great gorge, for truly it did seem as that nothing that ever did live came anigh to that wild and silent place of stone and rock, but that I journeyed through it alone, and was surely the first thing that did go that way for maybe 1,000,000 years. And this feeling that was upon me I do hope you to perceive and to take unto yourselves, and thus have an understanding of my heart at that time. And as you shall know, I went always unto slumber with sweet and with troubled thoughts of the maid. Yet for a great while I have been put so mightily to the labor of my way, that my heart did suffer less at this time than should be thought. And truly it doth show me how I was drawn unto that one with all my being, that I did surely think so oft and sweetly upon her amid so many perils and matters of horror. And this doth seem something strange to say, when that you do consider that I was adventured unto these same perils and horrors, but only for the sake of the maid. And in 6 hours did I wake, as I did strive alway to set myself to do. Yet was I very heavy and slow for a little, until that I was more properly come to wakefulness. And surely, as I did think before, this was like to be put upon me by the weighty air of the place. But yet it might be that the gas which did float in the gorge was upon my lungs. And also, as you have perceived, if but you have attended my way, the air was grown warm, and oft were the rocks pleasant to the seat, and all of these matters did contrive to make me slumberous. Now presently the gas fires did cease utterly in the gorge, and I looked downward along that great place, and saw only a grayness, but above the grayness there was, as it did seem, something of a vague and ruddy shining in the night. And this did wake me to wonder what new thing lay before, so that I grew more eager among the boulders. And later, when I had eat at the 6th and 12th hours, and gone on a while, I came to a place where the gorge made a quick turning unto my left, and at the end of the turning was a red and glowing light, that was very great and wonderful, so that I was utter keen to come to that place, that I should discover what made the shining. And the place where I was come then was very dark, because that I was nigh under the mighty wall of the mountain of the right side of the gorge, Yet above, as it did seem to me, there was a far red upward glowing in the night. Then did I go forward very fast, and presently, in a good while, I discovered that I drew near to a second great turning that went to the right, and about the 17th hour I came nigh unto the second great turning. And here did I put caution upon me, and crept for a while among the dark rocks of that place, that I should come into a sight of that which made the monstrous red shining. And presently I was beyond the corner of the mountain, and did look downward into a mighty country of seas, and the burning of great volcanoes. And the volcanoes did seem as that they burned in the seas, and the country was full of a great ruddy light from the volcanoes. And so shall you perceive me there among the rocks that did all stand upward, strange and bold and silent in the red and monstrous glare of the light. And I, as it did seem, the one thing of life in all that desolation and eternity of rock and stone, there in the end part of the great gorge. And I peered forth into the wonder of the light, and was full of thrillings and fancies that I was surely come to the place where the Lesser Redoubt had been builded. And immediately I knew that this was not so. For sure had not Nani told how that they were in a land of darkness. And if this be so, truly how wondrous and dread a way I had yet to go, if that this country of seas and mighty volcanoes stood between. Surely it did seem to me then as that I must wander searching unto the world's end, and so shall you be company unto me there with my trouble and my thoughts, and the immediate wonder and strange glory of that mighty country.
Every musician's got a ritual. Tuning, tone, distortion. Find the tools for yours at reverb.com. New, used, and waiting for you.
The Dark Pyramid, Part 1. Now in 2 hours more I was come clear down out of the gorge, and stood in that country. And for all that I did feel fresh troubled and bewildered, yet was I rejoiceful, as you may believe, in the surprising light and splendor of that sudden land. And before that I had come down out of the great gorge, I had stood high within the mouth thereof, and looked well out over the mighty country. And I counted 27 great volcanoes, and this doth not take heed of 2 monstrous ranges of fire hills that burned afar off, something unto my right. Neither doth it take account of 100,000 lesser places of fire. And truly it did seem a very land of fire and water, for there was a small fire hill stood within a sea, as it did seem no more than a little mile from that place where I did stand, and maybe a score to the back of it, spread all about. And here shall I do proper to tell concerning the seas. For there were of these that I did count at that time 3 that were small, and a mighty sea that went onward forever into the red light of the fire hills, so that it was gone utterly out of my sight, and did show no ending. And there rose up out of the seas islands, and on the islands volcanoes. But in other parts the fire hills did come upward straightly from the sea. And over the near sea, as it did seem, there lay a plenitude of steam, as that the sea did boil at whiles, and in divers places. And there did seem to me, as it were within the red atmosphere of that place, as that there were a muttering thunder, low and constant, shaking the air, now from that distance, and now from this. And this did I judge to be the voices of the fire hills, speaking with the fire that lived in them. And you shall conceive how utter new was all this unto me, for there was in that country a constant voice of the energy of life, so that the world noise of this our age was even there again, and with a keen and undoubted apparentness, and the more so some ways than now. And here shall I set down more closely the things that were ready to my gaze. And first, that it did much attract me, there was a huge and blackened mountain unto the left of the mouth of the gorge, and the mountain did go upward into the night, maybe 15 and maybe 20 miles. And there was a mighty peaked volcano that grew out from the side of the mountain so high up as 5 miles, as I did guess that height. And this was upon the far side. And above this there was a second, maybe 9 or 10 great miles up in the blackness of the night that hung afar upward. And as that this were not great wonder enough, there did burn and glow 2 other mighty fire hills at an utter height upon the left crest of that black mountain, and these were upward so monstrous a way as that they did seem to make strange and smouldering suns within the night. And truly, as you shall perceive, this was a wondrous thing. And below these upward fire hills there rose up from the earth vast mountains of ash and burned stuff that had been cast forth by these perched volcanoes, and had poured downward unto the earth throughout eternity, and so build grey and sombre monuments unto the dreadful glory of time. And to my right there was always sea, and the red blazing of the fire hills, but unto my left there were mighty forests, and there rose upward here and in that place, as that they were beyond the great woods, monstrous fire hills. And so do you take from me something of that first impressing upon my brain and sense. And after that I had come down out of the mouth of the great gorge, as I did tell a little while gone, I came upon a pause, for surely which way was the way proper into my search? And I looked about for a great while, and afterward did climb back into the gorge, and called myself foolish, that I had not thought to map my way ere I came down. And when I was come up into the gorge again, lo, I saw that there was but one way that I should go. For truly, as I have said, there was only the seas unto my right, but unto the left, where the shores did meet the seas, there seemed, so far as mine eyes did tell to me, a clear way for a space. And mayhap, when I had come so far, I should even find a further way to go forward. And so did I descend again unto the country of the seas, as I did ever call that red shining country of water and fire. And by that I was come again from the height of the gorge, it was 24 hours since that I did last sleep, so that I was fain that I should put into some nook and come to slumber, as you shall well believe. And I found me a neat and proper place, where 3 great trees grew about a little basin of rock that was very dry and warm. And here, after that I had eat 3 of the tablets, and drunk some of the water, the while that my belly did yearn, as ever, for proper eating stuff, I made my bed in the little basin of the rock, and lay me down, and did begin to think a while upon Nani, but was gone over to sleep before that I was aware. And lo, I was suddenly awake, and did find that I swam in a hot water, and a mercy, I did think, was it that I was not drowned as I did sleep. And I gat me to my feet, and the basin was full of water, hot and steaming, and pungent to the taste, as well I did know. And I perceived now that the water poured in from a smooth slit upon the far side, and did come with a strange gurgling and bubbling, so that I conceived some deep well to boil, and thus to drive upward this water into the basin, and glad was I that it did not boil as it came forth. And surely, now that I was upon the dry land, and did consider, I did quickly suppose that the water had poured forth at seasons into the basin for an eternity of time, and afterward did go back by fissures in the bottom of the basin, and this to happen, as I soon did find, a little beyond the length of every hour, and indeed the basin to empty slow, as I did watch. Now, being much wetted, I stripped off mine armor, having before this dipped out mine effects from the hot pool, and so did come down to the naked flesh, and I found a place where the rock was hot, and here I did spread my garments. And whilst that they came to dryness, I gat me into the hot pool, and had a very pleasant bathing, and did have no great fear of any dangerous thing. For as it did seem, I had surely left all such behind within the nightlands. Yet did I have the discos upon the pool edge to my hand, for I had no proper assurance in this matter. Yet, as it did prove, there were many monstrous beasts in that country, but never did I feel the nearness and horrid power of any evil force. For these, as I do conceive, were congregate and gathered about the mighty pyramid, being attracted thereto by the great spiritual essence of so wondrous a multitude of humans gotten so close in one spot, even as sharks do come after the ship that hath bullocks within. Yet how that the evil powers were given entrance unto this state of our life, I have no sure knowing, yet have I put forward certain thoughts on this matter in an earlier place. And more than such thinkings is surely vanity, for there is no certainty in my reasoning concerning the thing. Now presently was my clothing dry, yet before this I had come out from that bath, which truly was nigh all gone backward into the earth. And I dressed me again, and got my armor upon me, and afterward was I in a more lightsome state of mind, and yet very ready to come again unto my sleep. And this I did, and had 6 hours more beside the pool, and once was wakened somewhat by the gruntling and bubbling noise of the water, that was made as the pool did fill time and again. And when the 6 hours were gone, I waked very well fitted in my senses and feelings to go forward again through that red-lighted country, and this I did after that I had eat and drunk. Now all that day I went forward at a great pace, and the nameless woods were unto my left, and the shores of the seas unto my right. And oft did I find that the trees grew even into the water, so that oft did I go forward among the trees, and a very wonderful thing was this to me, that never had known before in all my life, until I was come into that country, how that a glad and wild mystery doth live among forest trees. For there was no such strange wildness among the groves of the underground fields, though a solemn beauty in plenty. And the scent of the woods was sweet unto my spirit, as you shall wot. Now all the time that I did go, there was the shore unto my right, but always to my left, and around me ofttimes, as I did say, the great forests. And as I did go, lo, there was life in all those darksome woods, and living eyes did peer out odd whiles upon me, and afterward go backward into the dark, so that I wotted not whether to fear or to have no heed of trouble, yet naught did come anigh to me to make any hurt. And thrice in that day did I come to little fire hills that burnt redly, and sent out fire and noise, so that I heard their trouble each time through the forest before that I was come to them. And about each was there a deadness and desolation, where the fire had killed the big trees. Yet, as I did observe, the quick life of little plants did grow more nigh, as that they were born and lived between the times of the fire bursts, and this I do take it that you perceive. And in that one day I passed 37 boiling springs, but whether they boiled truly, I do have no knowledge, only that they sent out a great steam ofttimes, and some did make a strong roaring noise, so that to hear them afar off in the forests was to think odd times that some wild beast roared strangely. Now when the 18th hour was come, I sat me down, as I had done upon the 6th and 12th hours, and eat 2 of the tablets, and drank some of the water, which here did fizz very rich and quick. And afterward I laid down to my slumber, for I was greatly wearied. And I had chosen a place against a great rock, which was so that no creature might come upon me from behind. And I came easy upon sleep, but yet I did fix it upon me that I slumber only with the body, for I did know by the shining of the eyes in the darksome woods that strange creatures abode in the mighty forests. And ere I was gone over to sleep, I thought upon Nani, as I had done much all that day, as though her spirit did hover near unto mine, and did strive pitiful to speak with me. And this I set out to you, that you shall know how it did seem unto me in my thoughts and fancyings. And as I lay there, I put a blessing upon her, and a determination into my heart, that I make a more desperate speed of my going, if that might be, so that I come the sooner to that strange and unknown place in the dead world, where did stand the lesser refuge. And I was then asleep in a moment. And lo, sudden I was awake, and lovely was the brightness of that country, that did show me in a moment my danger, and did not keep me suspend in fearful doubt, as did the grey darkness and strange shadows and lights of the nightland. For I saw, on the instant that I got me to mine elbow, how that certain things did crouch within the borders of the trees, no more than a score paces off. And I perceived in a moment that my spirit had been given knowledge, and had wakened me. And I stared, the while that I did grip the discos, and I saw that there were 6 squat men that were humped at the neck and shoulder, and they did crouch all there in a row, and were something hid by the shadows. And I perceived that they watched me, and the eyes of the men did shine like the eyes of beasts, and so shall you know somewhat of the strange terror that came upon me. Yet had I the discos and mine armor, and though my heart did shake a little, yet was my spirit assured to conquer. Now I gat me to my feet, and had the discos ready within my hand. And behold, I could not see the humped men, for they were gone from that place. Yet never did I see them go, though I had kept my gaze very steadfast upon that part where they did hide. And as you shall understand, I was near ready to believe that there had been nothing there within the border of the wood. Yet truly I knew that the men with the humps had been there, as I had seen. Now I looked presently, and found that I had slept 5 hours, and I eat 2 of the tablets as I did stand there watchful, and afterward drank some of the water, and so was ready to go forward again, for I was grown very anxious to be gone from that place, and did have no knowledge but that those strangely humped men were but a little way off among the trees, and might come upon me in a moment, or further, that they did go to call an army of other humped men to my destruction. And after that I was ready, and had my gear secure upon me, I set off at a great stride, and did hold the discos very handy, and looked this way and looked that way, and all the while made onward with speed. For truly I was grown so lean and hard that it did seem to me that I had power to outpace those men or aught else of their kind. And all that day through 30 great hours did I go forward at that stride, and did always watch. And at every 6th hour I eat 2 of the tablets, and drank a little of the water, and went onward again. And so did I hope that I was lost from those humped men. Yet though I did hope, my faith was not this wise. For twice and thrice did it come to me that there went things through the woods to my left all that day, and did keep always to a level with my speed, yet were always hid. And as you shall believe, this did be a very shaking thing to my heart, and did make my hope of but little account. Now because that I had no faith to company my hope, I was not easy to have slumber, until that I was come to a place proper and safe. And so, as I have told, I went onward through 30 great hours, and in truth in all that while I did find nowhere that did seem to fit my need. And lo, about the end of the 30th hour I perceived that there was water ahead, besides the water of the sea that was ever to my right. And I thought maybe that the sea did go inward at that part of the land. But it was otherwise. For when I was gotten to that place, I found that a river came into the sea, and did come out of all the country that lay unto my left. And in the mouth of this river there was a small island. And surely I did look across to the island, and think it a refuge from the humped men that did surely play dog upon my going. Yet truly this was but an idle thought, and my need was that I should come to some way to cross over the river, that I go forward beside the great sea, which did stretch onward, as it did seem forever, before me upon the far side. And I knew not how to go across, for I had no power to swim, and had I swum, there were surely monsters in that great and warm flowing river, as you shall believe. And I went upward of the river bank, that I might come to some place where the river did narrow, and surely I had been like to walk a mighty distance to this purpose, but that I came soon to a second river that did enter the first, not a mile above the shore of the sea, so that, as you do perceive, there was the sea to one side of me, and this second river unto the other, and the first river before me. And thus was I sorely perplexed, as any had been truly that was in a like trouble. Yet, as it did chance, the need to go forward and the danger of the humped men put wit into me, so that I looked about for a tree that was fallen. and there were many, yet great, so that I was much wearied and something strained of the spirit, before that I gat 2 little trees unto the water. Now when this was done, I made me a rough pole of a young tree plant, and afterward I lashed the 2 trees together with my belts and straps, and so had somewhat of a raft. And you shall picture that, all the time as I did go about this business, I was very heedful lest the humped men should come upon me, ere that I was gone free upon the water. And this constant heeding did double the labour of my work, as you shall perceive. Yet in the end it was done, and I was ready to adventure over the river. And so I did push off with the pole, and I pushed and paddled maybe the half of an hour, for indeed it was all a clumsy contriving, and mayhap I the more so in my labours. Yet presently I was come so far over that I drew nigh to the island, and it did seem a wise and proper thing that I should have my slumber there, and afterward go onward to the farther shore. And this I did, and after that I had eat and drunk as ever, I lay down to sleep. And by this time it was 33 hours since last I did slumber, so that I was bitterly awearied. And I had a great and restful sleep, for truly the island did seem a very safe place, and in verity I came to no harm, though I was as a dead man for 9 great hours, and so shall you perceive my weariness. And when I was come proper awake, I eat 2 of the tablets and drank some of the water, and afterward made an end of my voyage, and then did take back my belts and straps from binding the trees, and so forward again upon my way, and no more fearful of the humped men. For surely I did think I had left them all upon the far shore of the river, though afterward I minded me that they might grow likewise upon the 2 sides, but yet was I only discovered by those upon the one, as you do know. And all that day I went very swift, and passed many strange matters, and did coast upon wonders oft. And at the 6th and the 12th hours did I eat and drink, as ever, and between the 8th and the 14th hours did I come past 2 mighty fire hills, that made all the country to tremble with their noise. And 4 times did monstrous creatures pass by me, but I was swift hid, and came to no harm. And oft as I did go, were my thoughts upon the dear maid that I journeyed to save from destruction. Yet, as you must see, always were my thinkings brought sharply unto my going, so that scarce was I ever set off to ponder upon Nani, but that there came some danger or wonder to give me heed to my way. And because of this, as you have learned, I was more put to plan free of the instant trouble and peril of my way through all that mighty journey, than to have quiet chance for thoughts of love unto mine own. Yet truly was not my journey one whole thought of love unto Nani, and that peril made oft dumb my brain was but the truer song unto my maid. And at times I was among trees, but oft did I go past unnumbered boiling springs and small fire hills, and oft was the air full of the noise of the little fire hills and the roar of the boiling springs, but there came no harm unto me. And 1,000 times did I perceive things that had life, and I made a very cautious way, though with a great speed and cleverness of going that made my heart glad. And oft did I come to parts where a great life held the trees, and green stuff did flourish exceedingly, and the air rich and full and wondrous sweet, so that I was fain to think how that in some far-off time it might be that our children's children should come down unto this country, when the upper valley of the nightland was grown to an utter chill and lacking of air, and here build them a new refuge, if indeed any should come clear of the evil forces and the monsters that did live about the mighty pyramid in the nightland. Yet how should they come clear of those things, so that this is, as you do perceive, no more than a thought that did rise vaguely in me. And yet again, who shall say what may be? And onward I did pass, and I do mind me how that I saw the lower fires of that country do burn very fierce, and this I set to the richness of the air, but yet with no surety of knowledge, and do but tell the same that you shall see the oddments of thought that went oft across my brain, and so have so much knowledge as I concerning this and that. Now a little before the 18th hour was come, I came out from among the trees, and the sea was downward of a great cliff unto my right, for I had gone upward for a long and weary hour. And I did see now a thing that made me to be cautious, and yet that did hold my heart to go swiftly to perceive the thing, for it was very strange. And I went forward quickly, yet with a wise care, and so was come presently more nigh. And I perceived that the thing was in part a high rock, very tall and pointed, and maybe 100 feet high. But afterward I did find it to be more. And there was a monstrous great thing upon the top of the rock, that did seem very strange. And I stopped and looked, and afterward went forward again, and so for a time, until that I was but a little way off. And now I saw that there did seem to be a mighty long rock laid across the topmost part of the upstanding rock, and yet had a very strange and shapely appearance, and did seem upon the under part to be as that I had looked before upon it. And upon the upper part there grew trees and green things, even as these did grow upon odd ledges of the upstanding rock. Yet for the most part the rock was very stark, as that a blast had blown upon it and made it bare. Now when I had looked for a while, I bethought me that this should be a safe and proper place for my slumber, if that I had power to come safe to the top. And when I had thought this thing, I began at once to climb up the rock, and I found that the rock was very high, so that in a while I was come a great way off the earth, and yet was not come to the top of the rock. And because that I was awearied, I looked about for a safe place to mine hand. And lo, there was a shelf of the rock very nigh, that went inward a little to the side. And I gat me to this ledge, and did eat and drink, and presently I slept, and scarce had thought of Nani in the moment of my slumbering, for a great weariness was upon me, the which I do think to have come by reason that I was not yet proper rested from the task of the day that was gone before that one.